public comment? There we go. No public comment, I see. So we're moving on to the minutes of October 7th. Motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Thank you. Next up, we have finance for September of 2013. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're presenting to the financial statements for the 9 months ended September 30th. And as the usual, the benchmark is 75%. The expenditure level to date is 73.1. I also did a different calculation there. I said, well, if 75% of our budget is $32 million approximately, and we've spent $31 million. So based on that, we're underspent by $1 million. However, the fourth quarter of our fiscal year, typically our spending levels increase, plus we have year-end accruals which would eat into that. But I present that as at least one benchmark for your information at this point in time. So if we look, skipping ahead to the graph, the expense level is pretty much on target historically, as well as the revenue at 71%. And again, this is the time of year when we're collecting most of our property tax revenue, and the property tax revenue at this point is pretty much on target. So it's always good to see the revenue graph go up to the benchmark as we approach the end of the year. Finally, the other funds of the year are pretty much on target. The two funds that have where we're past their year end, that's front of the court and the health department. We're still making some year-end adjustments there. I made some notes that if we look at the actual revenue versus the budgeted revenue, there is a major difference there in two of the funds because the budget includes the planned use of fund balance, whereas the actual revenue does not. What I left off of the discussion is for the health department fund, our plans were to use $854,000 of the fund balance at the end of the year. So, welcome any questions. Thank you. Yes, sir. No, I do not. I think we anticipated the revenues being pretty much flat relative to the year before. We're looking for, optimistically, for it to turn around. So it's pretty much flat at this point relative to prior years, which I guess is good. Okay. Okay. Okay.
We have budget adjustments for the fair fund for the next meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I know it's very favorable, but still it needs to be adjusted.
Yes, I have yet to meet with Denise on that, but yes, we'll have for the fair fund as well as adjustments for general fund and any other funds as needed. So.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. And fellow board members. I have in front of you today the request to approve architectural services for the clerk's remodeling project. As anyone who's been to the clerk's office recently can attest to. It's a pretty congested and very busy place. So we've set the money aside to take care of that, and we've already done our preliminary design studies, and we're ready to go for the next step.
I'd move the request.
Support.
Thank you, folks.
Good afternoon. As you know, with the Affordable Care Act, that's imposed a lot of changes on the county and requires us to keep our group health plan document and the cafeteria plan document up to date and in compliance with health care reform. So essentially what you have in front of you today is an amendment for the cafeteria plan to revise dependent language from the Health Care Reform Act. And then we initially used to have 2 actual group health plan documents because we had employees who were considered grandfathered and non-grandfathered. Now that all of those employees are under the same health plan, they are all considered non-grandfathered. And so we are going down to 1 plan that will now be compliant with the provisions of the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Commissioner Elwell.
Joni, it's just technical revisions to the cafeteria plan, essentially anything that would impact the employees or retirees or not?
Right. Revising the definition of a dependent, because we do now have to cover dependents up to age 26, and putting us in compliance, even though we've been doing it by practice, but having the plan in compliance with the election for a medical reimbursement account. The maximum that we can now have allow an employee to contribute is $2,500.
Any further questions? Administrator Overton, please.
Joni, for the benefit of the board, could you tell us what it costs? What's the legal cost to have this changed?
I haven't seen the specific invoice this time around. I know she did what she could to hold the costs down, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the dollar amount is. Probably a few hours at least of 1,000, 2,000. I'm really not sure.
Okay, thank you. The reason I ask is, frequently I hear folks talk about the Affordable Care Act and, it's not a big deal, we just have to make a few little modifications. Every modification we make costs literally, we have spent thousands of dollars and have thousands of dollars in continuing ongoing costs to just make our plan in compliance with the rules set down by the Affordable Care Act. That was my only point to
Yeah, that's very true.
Thanks.
I'd move the request.
Full board.
Motion and support to send this to the full board. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Apparently it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have the clerk with a fee request, fee increase request.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
That is correct. I am here to request an increase of fees for certified copies of vital records. The current price is $10 for the first certified copy and $2 for each additional purchased at the same time. The request would be to increase that fee to $15 for the first certified copy and $5 for each additional. It's unknown when the amounts of 10 and 2 were actually set in place, but to my knowledge, it was has been in place at least since the early 80s. Up until April 1st of this year, birth certificates were the only vital record that was printed on security paper. And after we received a memo from the state registrar that was strongly recommending that we print all vital records on security paper, we began doing that on April 1st. So that has added to the cost of supplying the security paper. We do purchase the paper through the state of Michigan. And we issue death certificates, and those are the most certified copies that we receive requests for. I realize that this is a delicate issue of raising fees, but it is also part of the 2014 budget. So that has already been approved.
And it has been 30 years.
Correct.
Okay. Questions? Commissioner Rice.
Amanda, I see here that the estimation is that the revenue increased will be $30,000 on these increased fees.
That's correct.
Was that the determining factor in how much you were going to increase the fees to get to a certain dollar amount?
Actually, it wasn't. I did provide a copy of all the fees across the state, and if you did have a chance to review, you'll notice that we are the third lowest in the state, and for being the 14th largest county, it's pretty bad, in my opinion. So I don't think that raising the price to 15 and 5 is an outrageous jump. It is comparable to the majority of the counties, especially the larger counties that are listed. I know that some go as high as 26, which is what you can charge. Actually, the state fees just increased to 29, and I think you can charge as much as the state charges, which is quite high.
All right, thank you for the explanation, and I certainly support this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Elwell.
Amanda, two questions. How many copies, if you can estimate, maybe you don't have it, but do we print right now on this paper per year, if you know?
Well, right now, I don't have an estimate, but I do know that in years past, our vital records, we print about between 7,600 and 7,700 per year. And it's hard to get a true cost, because the prices are right now 10 for the first and 2 for each additional. And our computer does not track how many there are, breaking it down. So it's difficult to determine that, but I do have the numbers that the amount of death certificates that we've sold since April. I believe it's over 1,000. So that would be the area of the revenue, the largest area.
Okay. And then, do you know ballpark how much that paper cost? Is it hugely expensive? And because realistically, we'd only be using about 8,000 sheets, correct?
Correct. And I do have those figures, if you'll bear with me here while I find them. Thought I had them handy. Okay, there are 10 reams in a box, which is 5,000 sheets. Oh no, that's our other paper. $2,000 sheets for $89.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you. My question is in regards to communicating with some of the businesses and entities that this will create a significant cost increase to them. Have you had conversations with the title companies or any of the other local businesses that use this service significantly?
I have not. Funeral directors or funeral homes are the ones that are going to be the most impacted by this, and I do plan to provide notice to them.
Commissioner Mahoney?
And those fees are normally passed down to the family when they file.
That's correct. And you will notice, and I apologize if I missed this, but we do offer a corrected copy fee, and right now it's 5 and 2, and we're asking that that fee be changed to 7 and 3. And people do purchase corrected copies often when they file a death certificate and say the Social Security number might be wrong, or the mother's maiden name, and the funeral home will make a correction, and then they need to purchase new copies, and we do charge the reduced rate.
Any other? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Being a funeral director, I know that usually their fault if they make mistakes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Commissioner Elwell?
Sorry for leaving my mic on. Just a quick comment. I'm going to support sending it to the full board for discussion, although I may vote no there. But I think it's worthy of discussing with the full board.
Commissioner Lutchka? I don't know, do we have support for the motion?
Yes, I move to
Okay.
take the support.
Okay. We have motion and support. All in favor? Moving it to the full board, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have the information, the IT people. Welcome, Connie.
Welcome. My request today is to approve the purchase of a new SAN, that stands for Storage Area Network. This is our virtual server environment. We have over 40 servers running in this environment, and it's basically the backbone of the entire computer system, including our phones, 911, sheriff, et cetera, imaging, et cetera, et cetera. We've ran this system for almost 7 years. It is end of life in March of 2014. We have filled the capacity of the current system. The current software and data will migrate to the new system with room for future expansion. We went out for RFP for this and got 4 respondents. They are listed in Section 2A. After doing our weighted grading sheets, we have come up with Avalon at $267,944 as being their best qualified vendor based on the evaluation factors. This is in the capital budget to cover the purchase for 2014, and the vendor is aware of that billing for this project will occur January 1st. And the timing is critical because of the end of life and support cycle of the mission critical piece of equipment. So any questions?
Questions, commissioners?
Yes.
Commissioner Rice?
Hi, Connie.
Yes.
On 2 of these, underneath current situation A that you talked about, it says, and services of. On the other 2, it doesn't say that.
Yes, the other 2 have the services included in the price.
Okay, thank you for that. Also, just a question for whoever wants to answer it, including you. This is not the lowest bid.
Correct. We
Okay. 'Cause
used an evaluation factor.
Okay, I understand that, and I just know that there's been discussion in the past about whether it should be lowest bid or not, and in this case, it's not. So, if you could just explain just a little bit more why you're going not with the lowest bid.
Okay, when you ask for a solution from these vendors, it's a very complex solution. They're giving you their idea of what they think will work best for you. It doesn't necessarily meet your original criteria. And then also, because so much is involved, the high price of the services, you want to make sure the vendor has as much background and references and experience as you expect when you spend those those kind of figures. So in evaluating their proposed solution for us, which was different than the other company, it's not apples for apples, we looked at all of our criteria that was important to us, and that vendor, I would say, even though their price was the lowest, fell a little short in the services and other areas, and their solution.
Any further questions, Commissioners? Comments? Need a motion and support? Okay, we have motion and support. All those in favor of moving this to full board indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
We move to the next topic, topic H. Comes from our administrator. Would you like to speak to this, Mr. Administrator?
Certainly, thank you. Thank you. Perhaps first, perhaps a little history is in order as to how it is that we have need of such policy in front of the board. Board has a history of doing an invocation at our Tuesday night meetings, many years, I'm not sure how many, with commissioners rotating through. We have recently had a lawsuit filed against the county with requests that we can discontinue the invocation. This, not being a money issue, was not covered by our insurance, so we forwarded to Peter Cole's firm up in Lansing, who generally handle these type of municipal complaints for the county and for most of the state, frankly. This is not the first time this type of case has been brought and litigated, and the Sixth Circuit Federal Appeals Court has ruled on this case before. We are in that court jurisdiction. The case was out of Tennessee, and very similar case, and at that time the court ruled that commissioners should not step up and pray, offer an invocation at public meetings. What the court did there was said that you can create a policy thereby allowing ministers, priests, and so forth from the community or for people in the community to come and pray. In which, and they basically outlined it, the court's decision outlined what the policy should or shouldn't be, that sort of thing. In our conversation, the 31st, with our attorneys, two of them, came down to see us. We had a conversation in the afternoon, and they shared with us the options. And the option is, one, as I described, create a policy, which we have done. Frankly, the policy in front of you is a policy drafted by the attorneys to be in compliance with the court order, court directive, if you will, court case. And the other options are, one is to discontinue invocation altogether, have no invocation, and therefore that would satisfy the person complaining. And of course, the other option is to continue on with our case in defense of that in court. Although it's already been decided, and ultimately we would retry a case that has been determined by the Federal Appeals Court. It's very unlikely that case would change, or the outcome. Now, with that being said, it also should be pointed out that the United States Federal Supreme Court has taken this case up. It was just in the news last week, and our attorneys indicated that they anticipate an answer, or I should say a decision, by next summer of 14. So we have probably 6-7 months at least before it's really decided by the court. So, as I indicated, what our options are. Frankly, I have worked in places where it was common practice that a minister would come in and pray every month. Different ministers from different churches and so forth. So it's not, to me, that's not something that's not known to me or not common. And I guess really what it comes down to is what the board's pleasure is on this one here.
Commissioner Elwell.
Mike, isn't it accurate that the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals case they're talking about was a challenge to the exact policy that you're asking us to adopt? Isn't that what the actual challenge was?
No, as it's been described to me, it was about prayer in the from public officials at public meetings. And the court's decision was that you can adopt a policy like this and be in compliance. At least that's how it was explained by, like I say, from two attorneys from Peter Cole's office.
The one I'm looking, is it from Tennessee, do you know? Is that where it came from?
Yeah, they did say it was a Tennessee case.
Yeah, the way it's reading here, it's pretty clear that they had this policy like we have, which was challenged. And if I'm reading it right, it says that that is legal. I don't see that it said necessarily that prayer by the legislative body itself was illegal, but I just now pulled it up. So I just wanted to clarify that, I guess, or ask the question.
What I've been told is this policy, in fact, it's written by those attorneys, would meet the legal definition as outlined by the court as allowable.
Still have the floor.
Okay, well, nobody else raised their hand, so I'll talk, just for a second anyway. Well, I don't like a couple of things. One, I wish we had talked about this more sooner. If we had time to, would have been good, study session or otherwise. And I think I commented to the administrator this morning that it's one of the most detailed policies I'd ever seen come out of his office, and that's when he clarified it was the attorney that drafted it. But I don't like being told what we can and can't do here. And I accept the fact that courts rule and, taxpayer dollars are at risk if we have to fight something, but I guess you also have to weigh, or I do anyway, how much is too much when you're talking about principle and what you think is right. So that's one of the things I'll weigh when I decide how I'm going to vote on it. But and how I vote here may not be how I vote at the commission meeting on Tuesday. Thank you.
Commissioner Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in this policy, if we're going to say we're going to allow ministers to come, will we direct them as to how they have to pray? Will we tell them that they can not mention Jesus Christ, or will we direct them that, they only can, what are we going to tell them they can and cannot do, that they can only pray to Allah or, a Buddhist God, or, what is going to be the conditions of having these different ministers that call and sign in to come to the meeting and pray? Are we going to give them some kind of direction?
Yeah, yes, sir. We got.
At any rate, there we go, good, thank you. That's the point. We are not allowed as government to take a position or favor one religion over another. And so we can't give direction to the minister or priest or whomever comes to before the board here to give an invocation. Basically the policy says we're going to create a list of eligible folks, and we'll schedule them to come. They can only come so many times in a given year, that sort of thing. But if you are, and the eligibility criteria would have to be refined a little more, but basically what it comes down to is if you have a church, you could be on the list and come in and pray, regardless of as to what God you're praying to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're saying that only pastors or the head priest, because in Catholic churches there's more than one who's not necessarily the pastor. I am a licensed elder, but I'm not the pastor of a church. So a licensed elder can't participate?
In all honesty, we don't have that kind of detail in the policy. My expectation would be that it's whomever that church deems as, as qualified or to represent the church there in a official capacity, be that a pastor or associate pastor or priest or so forth.
Commissioner Mahoney, you still have the floor.
Thank you. It was my understanding that the person filing a lawsuit only had a problem with the use of the name Jesus Christ. So other ministers that may come may still pray and use the words Jesus Christ. So are they still going to file a lawsuit against us for that?
Whether they do or do not, I can tell you that the suit really did not specify Jesus Christ or otherwise. At least that's my understanding. Now, I have heard that, but what when someone says and what is in the actual filing of the case may very well be two different things. I would emphasize that we are not to direct the person providing the invocation in any way as to what they will pray about or what words they will use. And as I understand, if the circuit court, the Sixth Circuit Appeals Court, has declared that we can't do that, they can say whatever they want to say and pray to, it could be someone from Muslim faith or Jewish faith or Christian faith or some other faith. We can't discriminate against any of those.
Commissioner Rice.
I'll take it a step further from what Commissioner Mahoney just said. Every one of us was here when that gentleman spoke out against his quote-unquote disgust that we would use the name Jesus Christ. And it's clear to me, and I suspect everybody can use their own conscience here. It's clear to them. This is specifically an attack on Christianity and Jesus Christ, period. This man is only doing it for this purpose and this purpose only. He's trying to make a point so that we cannot get up there, or some people can get up there and not have to use the word in the name of Jesus Christ, because every board member here who gets up there and says a prayer during invocation, we end our invocation in the name of Jesus Christ. And so to me, it's just an attack on us. It's an attack on Christianity, and it's an attack on our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's the first thing. Next thing I'd like to say is this: is that this is in the U.S. Supreme Court right now, as Administrator Overton just said. From my perspective, until we receive a cease and desist order from the court, or until we get something from the U.S. Supreme Court that tells us specifically we as board members cannot get up there in our own right and end a prayer and saying that I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. We're up there as individuals and we end the prayer and saying in the name of Jesus Christ. It's us saying this. And so why should we take a step ahead of the U.S. Supreme Court? Why should we take a step ahead of potentially receiving a cease and desist order? Why should we hurry up on this? We settle lawsuits all the time with people that we know for a fact that we're in the right, but we will settle a lawsuit with them, we will pay them money, but yet we're not willing to spend a little bit of money to fight something like this. I find this outlandish, and I just do not understand why we're just going to sit here and let one individual in all of Jackson County dictate to us because we're afraid that we might have to stand in front of a judge or use an attorney. There's no way that I am going to support this whatsoever, either now or at the board meeting.
Commissioner Elwell.
Can I ask the administrator if we have a written opinion from the attorney on it, or is it all over the phone?
No, we don't have a written opinion. Basically, it was Adam and I sat down with those two attorneys when they came down from Lansing to speak with us about this.
Can I read one little blip from the Sixth Circuit Court article that I pulled up? And it says, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed this week that prayers given before legislative bodies are constitutional despite atheist assertions that such practices cannot withstand legal scrutiny. Last summer, a group mailed a letter to officials in Hamilton County, Tennessee, to complain about citizen-led prayers that are regularly given before county commission meetings. So that's what that Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling is. I don't think it necessarily talks about what we're talking about, unless it does somewhere else in the ruling. So I'm just apprehensive to approve this. I mean, my first inclination is to pass the policy onto the full board, to let the board talk about it and debate it and make the right decision. And, you know, a couple of us just talked informally about the issue, and you're talking about tax dollars, potentially spending them. But I think we're always talking about doing that in balance with what our principles are. And it's not to force anyone's religion on anybody, it's just being able to speak what we as individuals choose to speak when it's our turn. So I struggle with adopting this policy. And I almost wonder if there may be wisdom in our meeting next week, if we don't adopt this policy in the meeting next week, of just agreeing to observe a moment of silence for the one meeting until we can look into this further. Might be a more appropriate thing, I'm thinking, but whatever.
Commissioner Rice.
It's my turn next week, Commissioner Elwell, and I don't want to be silent. It says here, in the intent of the board, it is the intent of the board to allow a private citizen to solemnize the proceedings of the board. It says private citizen, so according to part of this legal language, that would mean potentially any private citizen could ask to pray, to give some type of message, and yet we're also hearing that this has to be a clergy. Now, we all know that any one of us could go online and become an ordained minister in about 10 minutes. So if somebody from the public wants to come before us and say they're an ordained minister, we are going to have to allow them as well. And I think we're opening Pandora's box here, because you're going to get members of the public who are going to come up at public comment, and we're going to create a lot of problems here when certain people come up here and say things that they're not going to like. And again, that's just other things I really think we need to consider. It's unfortunate that we didn't have more time to discuss this, and this had to be, for whatever reason, rushed through, because this should have been a part of a full board study session, and yet here we sit trying to push this through. I just don't think any of this is correct, and again, like I said, I just cannot support this.
Commissioner Lutchka.
It seems funny how one person can cause so much waste of time. However, the ruling has already been issued that we have to do something different. The policy, to me, would open more participation in the general populace of the county in our meetings, because we'd have a list of clergy that would be asked or be able to volunteer. If your name's not on the list, you work at getting it on. So I don't have a problem with the policy. I don't particularly like the avenue that was used to have us create the policy, but you got to bite the bullet and move on.
Administrator Overton.
Thank you. A few things. One, I would say that in regard to Commissioner Elwell there, that case in Tennessee may very well be the on-the-mark case they're pointing to, because as you described it, the case says, or I should say, the court affirmed that you can have a policy allowing clergy, private clergy, to come in and pray. And basically the attorney said you can do that as drafted, as they have drafted the policy. As far as private citizens, no, the policy does not allow for that. They need to be a member of or organized clergy church, that sort of thing there. And I would also remind the board that we're treating this as a policy, as we have other policies. We've had lots of policies come before the board. There's been lots of policies that come to the board, and frankly, the board has said, you know what, that policy's not ready yet. We need to look at it more, and sends it back for more time to look at. And it's been the next month, as far as that goes. I don't really see this policy as a whole lot different than that. Granted, there's a lawsuit that's been filed, it's in the court system, if you will, but by the same token, if the board feels that they need more time to discuss and debate this type of issue, I don't see, or I should say, did I say, if the commission feels they need more time to do that, I don't see why the court would argue, that they shouldn't take the time they need to take a look at the policy itself. So, if you're inclined to do that, we'll bring it back next month and discuss it some more. But just know that from my personal point of view is that my faith isn't challenged or hindered regardless of who's praying or not praying here, personally. And regardless of what we do, the Supreme Court will make a decision next summer. At least that's by next summer is what I've been told. And we'll have to abide by that.
Commissioner Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My faith isn't challenged either by what other people think. However, I do think that, as we have in the past, when somebody tries to bring forth a policy, we had a committee that we sent things through. We don't have that committee anymore, so policy committee, it's included. Well, I think that I would like to move that it's sent back to the policy committee for review. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, then I think we need to take it to the study session. And let the whole board have time to discuss it.
Okay, I get a say in this now. I'll go last, or close to last. Through my life, I've had political correctness jammed down my throat, jammed up, never mind. But political correctness nonsense needs to end. It's got to stop somewhere. We need to take a stand on this. The Federalist Papers, if you read them, tells me that it's your duty to disobey an illegal law. And it's taken some nitwit 200 and some years to come up with an angle like this to try to deprive me or other people of my faith of my rights. And someplace along the line, you got to draw a line in the sand and say enough's enough. And I think this is that place for me. I'm so sick of this type of action that I won't support the policy. So that's where I am on it. Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Elwell.
Well, just one final comment or a couple, I think. I'm going to vote to send it on to the full board so that we can all discuss it. There's other people that aren't here that might want to talk about it, but I'm not offended by what somebody else thinks about my personal religion either. But when somebody tries to keep me from talking about it, that does offend me. And I think we also need to keep in mind that we allow 2 public comment periods at almost every meeting, at least every commission meeting, where anybody can get up there and talk about whatever they want, their religion or whatever. So they have that opportunity. And I just think more information on this would have been better. I would have liked to have seen, maybe they could have provided the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling to us, because I think it speaks a little differently than what we're being told, but I'm not doubting our attorney, but I just know what I read here. I'd like to discuss it more, so.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Well, I'll move to send the policy on to the full Board of Commissioners. Where it can be discussed, and it can either be voted up or down, right?
Should we do
Or
that,
sent back to
should we
committee, right?
bring it back next month, so we have a month to discuss this and compare your viewpoint with the Sixth Circuit Court versus the attorneys? They're people too, they may make mistakes. I don't know. Chairman Chatwell.
Commissioner Money had the right idea. If this committee so determines that it needs to go to the study session, you may direct it there and ask the administration to prepare both sides of it to have a better understanding, and that way we could read the ruling. The ruling's attached, Dave, to that news article that you sent. The whole court decision is. And I'm looking at it right here, so I don't see why that wouldn't be appropriate and responsible. We just continue operating the way we are right now until we get this policy reviewed, just as we would have with our gun policy.
Okay, well, I'll pull my motion then and move that it be redirected back to the administrator's office for further discussion and a topic at a study session.
Okay, we have motion and support. It'll be to send it back to delay it till we go to the study session. That's the motion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Board, for the discussion. Next up, we have the administrator topic I, be moving the 911, relocating the 911.
Adam.
Catch Adam.
This is a follow-up to our discussion on Friday, the work session. You have several options here. The ones recommended by the Administrator Controller's Office is to designate the Human Services Building as the new 911 center and begin the process of outfitting it for that. The other option is to take the Sheriff's recommendations to move it to Chandler Road Jail. In both recommendations, our facility staff and IT are ready to begin immediately on working. Granted, they are at different phases, but both our facilities and IT can work with them immediately.
Commissioner Elwell.
If we're looking for a motion, I'd move that we authorize the administrator to move forward with the Human Services Building.
Support.
We have motion and support. Any further discussion before we vote? Commissioner Lechka.
I guess I really don't care which place it goes as long as it gets out of the basement. So I guess I'll vote to move it to the full board, but
Any other comment before we vote? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have the topic of the Riverwalk site restoration and budget revision. Administrator topic, Mike or Adam? Adam, please go ahead.
There's two budget adjustments we're requesting this afternoon. One is to make a last and final budget adjustment and change order to the Adamo Group. There was a disagreement between both of us, and we canceled the last line of work on that, which was the backfill, because we had to work out a solution with the city that was acceptable to them. And in doing so, they believe they incurred additional costs because they had to finish the basement to a greater degree than they would have otherwise. We believe the next step is mediation, in which case a mediator rarely picks one side or other, but tries to satisfy both parties. So we would both include legal expenses, and we expected that a mediator would probably side in some way towards them. So we've kind of split the disputed amount between Adamo and the county, and are recommending that we just approve that change order, recognizing there may have been additional costs. We believe we would have a strong case if we fought it, but I'm not sure we would end up better financially. And then the second one is for the finishing contract with Ram Construction. And there was additional work that was performed by them, and a lot of different challenges as they finished repairing the deck of the old lobby. Some places the concrete was so thin, and with the weight of the structure falling on it, as they went to repair places, the floor just, there was holes, went right through. There was also steel mesh there, so it wasn't any danger. But those were repaired in good faith by RAM, multiple different spots, and we would have no question authorizing the change order with RAM Construction. We believe all those costs were merited.
Questions? Commissioner Elwell?
Adam, if I'm reading it right, if we approve both of these things today, it'll leave a balance that we allocated of $71,000 left approximately? Is that?
No, we're asking to add to the project budget a total of 71,000. I believe in the staff report it says it's 225 left, I think, if I remember that right. And
Okay, I didn't see that here. I must have missed it. Okay, that I
228,000
see.
left.
Yep.
And just to refresh you where we are in the practice, there's one more piece that we have, and that is the backfill. There's retaining walls, a short retaining wall, and basically earth to be moved in, and to repair the approach down into the new level. So there's one more piece of it before we wrap it up and call it done.
Commissioner Rice?
Well, I'll direct this to you, Adam. Would it be fair to say that the Adamo situation where the cost was split, would it be fair to say that we believe that we really don't owe them anything for services?
That's correct.
So we're going to split the cost, and even though we're feeling in the right, we're going to give them $25,459, correct?
And that's correct. And the reason being is we've already spent probably $6,000 in attorney's fees arguing this with them, and would be represented by counsel in mediation in doing so. And like I said, mediators, in my experience, having been with mediators, they rarely ever side with one. That's not their job. Their job is to make everybody either unequally unhappy or equally happy. So.
Administrator Overton?
I would just add, too, in there that while I concur with Adam that I believe we're correct, but yet at the same time, we did make changes to the plan. So when you start looking at those kind of factors and what a mediator is likely to do, the mediator could very easily say, well, County, you're the ones who initiated the change and made changes to what had you already approved. And the point being that we have incurred costs. It's hard to argue or prove the negative, meaning that they didn't incur costs, some additional cost in their changes and just their thinking alone. So I concur with Adam that I think that ultimately it's very likely that a mediator would split the baby, so to speak, and share in the cost, which we could save ourselves, frankly, the attorney's fees and trouble by just doing it now, sharing in that.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just seems to me that we're out to satisfy outsiders every single time. We're willing to satisfy lawsuits at whatever cost it is. And I don't know, I think these matters maybe should just come to the commission and let the commission decide to satisfy them versus taking them to an attorney, because all we're going to do is say, give them what they want, versus waiting to hear about it after you've already contacted an attorney or whatever and have spent dollars. We know that ultimately we're going to just give them what they want. So I think we're wasting taxpayer money with attorneys when that's what we're going to ultimately do.
Commissioner Rice?
I've asked this of a couple of my fellow commissioners, and at this point, I don't have a definitive answer, so, at this point, can we remove the change order for Adamo from this recommendation as a separate, motion for us? Right, divide the question. The Adamo would be taken out and the other matters would remain in there.
I would suppose.
Well, that'd be a motion that I'm making.
A suggestion, just move one or the other of them. I'll move the, well, do you have a motion on the floor already? Okay, I move first the question of the settlement with Adamo. Is that properly phrased, Denham? Okay, I would move that.
Support.
Okay, so you're wanting to
Just
settle with
Just
the
the settlement, that's
Adamo.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Lechka.
The motion is to separate it and send it to the board, full board with a recommendation, correct?
The settlement issue.
Any further discussion? Pardon me?
Mr. Chair.
You can do what you want with it, I'm just saying it's less than 50,000.
Although we still could send
Okay, I haven't spoke on this yet. Go ahead.
the settlement with Adamo of 25,000 to the full board with a recommendation that we pay it.
Support.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Well, it's kind of moot now, but we talked about this at the CVC meeting, and we pretty much concluded that paying Adamo $25,000 is probably the cheapest way to get out of this. As stated, if we go to a mediation, that's going to cost some money, attorney fees, and if they split the difference, we probably paid $33,000 instead of $25,000. So if we do it right now, it's probably the cheapest way out. That's my viewpoint. Commissioner Elwell.
I think there's a comparison trying to be drawn to the last long topic that we had, and I see this as different. This is a question of physical work being done. They claim they had done some or not, and it's not, I mean, principle may come into play on this, but not as much as the last topic that we had. So I see them as totally different. And again, when you go to mediation, I don't think our other one would go to mediation, but this one would. And I agree with Adam. They're going to try and find middle road, and we'd be on top of the $6,000 in attorney's fees, more yet. So I support it.
Okay. Then your motion is send it to the full board.
With a recommendation.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Nay. Okay. Passed 3-2 to send it to the full board. So we'll go send it to the full board, yes. Okay, moving on to other business. Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'll make a motion that the other half of this, the recommendations on this, that we move this to the full board.
Okay,
With a recommendation. Or awarded.
Correct. With the recommendation that we do the change orders and change the amounts.
Questions, clarification, concerns? Commissioner Elwell?
Adam, well, again, with this one, we could approve this one here too, correct?
70. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 50, it's just above the threshold.
Oh, if it's above, it's above. Is there time constraints on the work or not? Okay.
Is everybody set to vote? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes, will be sent to the full board. Thank you for the discussion. Other business, we need to pay the claims for October.
Move to pay the claim. Or.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to other minutes, is there any discussion or topics of concern on other minutes? Apparently not. December reporting schedule, you can read that for yourself. Public comment, do we have any public comment? Appears we have no public comment. Committee member comment. Commissioner Elwell.
Just a brief comment. I meant to make it this morning at Affairs and Agencies. I had a note and I got sidetracked yakking about something else. But one of the things reported by the clerk in her report was on the juror system and how many jurors have reported. And I fell into that group of jurors that had to go through that process, and I hated it. But her office was very helpful in taking my calls every day, trying to schedule work with whether or not I had to be to jury duty. So I appreciate the help from her office.
Further commissioner comments? Commissioner Mahoney.
I know I spoke this when we were in debate about paying things that have been litigated or not being litigated. I really think that the board should be informed prior to contacting an attorney about an issue so that we can know what it is and let the board decide whether or not we should contact an attorney or not, or whether we should go ahead and give the people what they want. I think it's a waste of money for us to take it to an attorney and let them make 6, 8, 10,000, and then we're still going to give the person who filed what they want or half of it. So I think if the board could do that, if that's what the pleasure of the county is every single time, which that's what it seems to be. So I really think that needs to be considered, and the other board members need to look at our track record and see that that's what happens and consider what I'm saying. Because we don't find out about these things until after the fact, and then we're just making a decision whether to pay it or not. And I think if we knew about them up front, look at the history of what we normally do, because that's what is the protocol, to look at what our past history is and make the decisions versus paying an attorney. That's what they say we make the big bucks for, so that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment? Commissioner Alexander.
As the individuals create the agenda for next Tuesday's Board of Commission meeting, and/or an individual is placed on the agenda in the area of invocation, I would personally, in celebration of Veterans Day yesterday, like to adhere to a moment of silence for our veterans at that time. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment? I have just a quick one, and it's in regard to Commissioner Mahoney's statement. I see the frustration. I think we have to trust the judgment of our professionals, and I agree there's some times where maybe we should all talk about it, but they are our professionals hired to handle these topics, so that's my viewpoint. Meeting adjourned.